They got me. I mean, just imagine the absolute terror of that thought. Time literally slows to a crawl. You're strapped inside a multi-million-dollar stealth bomber, thousands of feet in the air, pulling violent evasive maneuvers. But it isn't enough. A proximity missile has just detonated right next to you, ripping the dark sky apart with a cloud of sharp, glowing shrapnel. That is the exact, terrifying realization that hit Lieutenant Colonel Darrell Zelko. And it's exactly where our story begins today.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unraveling one of the absolute most gripping cat-and-mouse military thrillers in modern history. We are going to look at the tactics, the incredibly high-stakes technology, and the very real human moments behind the downing of the F-117 Nighthawk. Let's dive right in.
Okay, so it's the 27th of March, 1999. An F-117 Nighthawk tears through the dark, stormy skies, flying low over the Serbian countryside. The pilot is Lieutenant Colonel Darrell Zelko, and his mission tonight is to bomb the command center of the Serbian Air Force in Belgrade. Basically, he's bombing the headquarters of the very force trying to stop him. Now, Zelko is escorted by F-16 Vipers, carrying missiles that can lock on and destroy enemy radar. But right as he approaches the Serbian border, a command comes over the radio. This is Joint Forces Air Component Commander. Because the weather is just so exceptionally bad, those escorting Vipers are ordered to immediately turn back and return to base. He's entirely on his own.
If he's going to make it home safely, he has to remain completely undetected, a ghost. But fortunately for him, he is sitting in the most advanced operational fighter-bomber that has ever flown. The Nighthawk's stealth capabilities are so incredibly good that the 65-foot-long bomber appears on a radar screen as if it were the size of a tennis ball. And that has allowed it so far to go totally unchallenged in every single mission. Well, every mission until this one. Which brings up the big question, how do you shoot down an invisible plane?
Let's look at the two commanders locked in this duel. On one side, we have the ghost, Lieutenant Colonel Darrell Zelko. And on the ground, waiting for him, is the hunter, Lieutenant Colonel Zoltán Dani, who's commanding an anti-air missile battery. Serbian spies have let him know that the enemy aircraft are coming, and Dani thinks today is his absolute best chance to take down one of these elusive ghosts.
Sweep the skies, Dani orders, and immediately a P-18 early warning radar comes to life. It's on, his crew confirms. They think that by running the radar at its absolutely lowest frequency, they might actually be capable of detecting the enemy planes. But right away they report, I don't see the target. You see, that low frequency also detects clouds and rain, which results in a radar screen completely covered in fake signals. But looking incredibly closely through all that noise, Dani spots something. I see it. One tiny dot moving through the massive weather formations. A tiny dot headed right towards them. The ghost is here. So, Dani can see the dot on the early warning radar, but to actually fire a missile, he needs a lock. Turn on the targeting radar, he orders. It's on, they reply. We have 20 seconds. The men frantically scan the sky just as instructed, but they report back, I don't see the target. Nothing. Dani pushes them. Keep looking. This right here highlights a fascinating vulnerability in stealth tech. To actually drop a payload, the aircraft has to open its bomb bay doors, which drastically increases its radar cross-section.
High above, Zelko's Nighthawk is speeding toward his objective, his computer preparing the drop. To hit the command center in Belgrade, he opens his bomb bay doors to drop his laser-guided bombs. And just like that, his radar signature spikes. It happens at the exact wrong moment for the pilot, but it gives the Serbian SAM radar the lock they so desperately need.
Down in the Serbian command room, the tension breaks. Let's go again. Phi-1 is on. Phi-2 is on. Dani double-checks the low-frequency radar. He can see the target right in front of them. I have it, his men shout. Phi-2 is tracking the target. Phi-1 is tracking the target. Launch! And in quick succession, two missiles fire off the launcher, streaking right up into the stormy sky.
Right as this is happening, Zelko drops his bombs. They follow the path designated by the laser and explode perfectly. He soars past the target, it's another mission success, and he ascends to 6 kilometers. But then, a few seconds later, his cockpit is suddenly filled with the wail of an urgent alarm, and his controls light up. It's a lock alert. Almost at the exact same time, he looks down and sees two missiles illuminate the clouds below him and then literally break right through. They're coming right at him. He immediately breaks into evasive maneuvers, pulling his aircraft up to try and escape. He's violently pushed into his seat as he ascends, as the aircraft screams more warnings at him. Now remember, the F-117 has no chaff, so with the missile locked on, it's entirely on the pilot's actions to try and evade the threat. Time slows down. He knows it's over.
They got me.
Now these are proximity missiles, meaning they're designed to detonate near the aircraft.
Somehow, the first missile actually malfunctions and races right by his canopy, but the second missile doesn't. It explodes, sending out a cloud of sharp shrapnel that perforates the left wing of his Nighthawk. The entire left side is blasted to pieces, illuminating the night sky a fiery orange. The aircraft immediately loses control and is thrown into a wild, violent spin. Zelko is pinned to his seat, experiencing severe G-forces. The spin increases in violence. Flashing warnings illuminate his controls, and a bright flame shines through the cockpit windows as the landscape spins dizzily around him. He knows he's in a critical situation. Even ejection might prove fatal here, but it's literally his only choice. He fights 7 Gs of force, that is 100 pounds pulling up on each of his arms. Fueled entirely by adrenaline, he gets hold of the ejection handles and pulls. In the blink of an eye, the canopy is blasted away, and his seat rockets out of the cockpit. For 1.5 almost eternal seconds, Zelko free falls through the air, completely strapped to his chair. He's barely conscious, and he genuinely thinks that the seat is still inside the plane, that the ejection seat has malfunctioned.
But then, suddenly, he feels the massive tug of the opening parachute. He watches his burning Nighthawk tumbling away into the dark. The deafening violence of the spinning wreck is instantly replaced by a total calm. Zelko breathes heavily as he takes it all in. He's alive. But then another thought hits him. He looks up and realizes his parachute is bright orange. In the pitch-black sky, it might as well be a flare. He thinks, man, Mom is not going to be happy about this. He knows the enemy is going to be searching for him, but if he can just fall to the ground unseen, he can still get a rescue.
Falling deep behind enemy lines, Zelko grabs his survival radio. Mayday, mayday, mayday! Vega 31, going down. To his massive relief, an American operator copies his transmission. Right before he hits the dirt, he manages to spot a ditch below him.
The moment he lands, Zelko's evasion protocol kicks in. First, he makes a run for that ditch. Second, he paints his face and any exposed skin with thick mud to camouflage himself. And third, he waits in absolute silence. Because above him, the search is already escalating. Serbian army troops, local police, and civilians are swarming the area. Flashlights are actively piercing the darkness, and trucks are rolling past on the nearby highway. As he sits there perfectly still, trying to quiet his breathing, the suspense just becomes unbearable. He hears a rustle in the undergrowth just outside his ditch. It's getting louder, snuffling, panting. It's a dog. Slowly, carefully, Zelko pulls out his knife. The dog gets closer. He faces a terrible choice. Should he kill it? He reasons that if he does, the owner will immediately follow the trail. So he decides to wait. And in a totally miraculous turn of events, the dog suddenly turns, jumps up, and just leaves.
Sometime later, his radio crackles to life. Sandy 01, Vega 31, over. An American rescue chopper is in the area. The wave of relief is just immense. The chopper asks if it's safe to come down. Zelko peeks out. Flashlights are still shining in the distance. He says, yeah? Okay, let's go for it. And he flicks on his infrared strobe. But the tension skyrockets immediately because the strobe fails. The helicopter completely misses him. They cannot see him. So now, Zelko faces the ultimate life or death dilemma. He has a backup flare, but if he pops it, that bright light will obviously guide the rescue chopper right to him, but it will also instantly expose his position to the enemy patrols closing in from every direction.
He makes his choice. He pops the flare. Bright light instantly spills across the field, and in the distance, enemy flashlights snap toward the sudden illumination. The rescue helicopter rapidly sweeps in, but the pilot radio's down. Snuff your flare, it blinds our night vision. So, in a wildly chaotic climax, Zelko grabs the burning flare and frantically dunks it deep into the mud. Just as the field is blasted by the heavy wind of the landing helicopter, Zelko is pulled aboard. "How are you feeling, sir?" the rescue team asks. "Great, now let's get out of here." And they lift off with literally seconds to spare before enemy forces spill into that exact landing site.
Now, while Zelko was safely extracted, the historical aftermath of that night lived on. You see, the United States never destroyed the wreckage of the Nighthawk. This allowed Serbian forces to salvage the mortally wounded stealth bomber unimpeded. To this day, you can actually go see pieces of Zelko's actual aircraft proudly displayed in the Museum of Aviation in Belgrade.
And I think this brilliantly illustrates the human side of history. 12. That is the number of years it took for two former adversaries to cross paths again in peacetime. Because in 2011, Darrell Zelko finally got his wish to meet and shake hands with the man who shot him out of that dark, stormy sky. Zoltán Dani and his crew remain the only team in history to have ever downed a stealth aircraft in combat. Looking at it impartially, Dani's tactical brilliance that night is just undeniable. Reflecting on his historic victory, he later said, When it hit, it felt very good, like scoring the winning goal in a football match. It was an incredible triumph of analog ingenuity over seemingly invincible digital technology.
And this story leaves us with a fascinating, permanent reality of warfare. We can build the most incredible machines on Earth, yet an open bomb bay door or an old low-frequency radar can literally change history in a matter of seconds. It begs the question, in an age of rapidly advancing technology, is the idea of an invisible weapon just a myth waiting to be broken? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you next time.